As somebody who spends their free time beating Geometry Dash levels while solving Rubik's Cubes, one would say I'm pretty good at math, and to that I say, believe what you want, I like the praise. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, the Rubik's Cube has a lot of different combinations. 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489 million, 856,000 to be a bit more exact. But using an operation called logarithms, we have found that any Rubik's Cube can be solved in 20 or less moves. But you may be asking, but Lynn, how do you come up with that very broad solution? Well, let me go into detail. Logarithms are essentially the inverse of exponent operations, and if you don't know what exponents are, well, I think you need to go back to 5th grade math. But logarithms are the concept of finding what the exponent is to get to the answer. So instead of solving for the power, you're solving for the exponent to get to the power. In this problem here, 10 squared equals 100. This is an exponential form. To turn this into logarithmic form, take the base, in this case it is 10, and write log with a little 10 below it. We call this log base. And then you take the product of the exponent and set it next to the log. As you can see, log base 10, 100 equals 2. Now you understand how logarithms work. We can apply this to find God's number, the least amount of moves to solve any scramble on the Rubik's Cube. Hey, don't leave yet. I know your attention span is cooked, but just bear with me here for a second. There are about 18 different moves you can make on the Rubik's Cube, and if you move one of those faces, you have 15 more options to choose from for your next move. Since moving the same face would be inefficient and counterintuitive, so that's 270 possible states you can have from just 2 moves. But if you keep up that process, 18 times 15 to the power of n minus 1 to the power of any moves you can make, and you essentially get a number equivalent to 43 quintillion, which is the amount of possible combinations one Rubik's Cube can have and still be possible. If it doesn't make sense, think about a tree that can branch, in this case in thirds, right? So you have 3 starting moves, right? When you make your first move, then that's 3 new moves that you can make, and that goes for the same on each 3 sides. And basically what I'm trying to say is that it can repeat forever, and that is basically how like a tree branching out on a Rubik's Cube works, if that makes sense. Well, to find God's number, the exponential equation can be structured as the equation on screen, and we use n minus 1 because you won't be repeating the same move. Now let n be God's number, we need to solve for n, so we structure it as a logarithmic expression. Applying the rules I brought up earlier, your equation should look a lot something like this. We're dividing by 18 because that's the starting value of the states you can get from one turn, and using your trusty dusty calculator, it should give you a number like 16.7, rounding up to 17.
But Lynn, the thumbnail says God's number is 20.
You see, math and logic don't always make sense in relation to each other. That's why extraneous solutions exist, but that's a pea in a different pod. God's number being 17 is the math ideal or the theoretical minimum. We get this because when we're 16 moves in, that's only around 18 quintillion states, which is less than 43 quintillion, so that can't be it. But 17 moves, that's 280 quintillion possible states, which is more than 43 quintillion. That's how we know the numbers between 16 and 17, which is where we also get 16.7 from that, and which we used logarithms to calculate. But we get 20 because we consider the fact that some turns may lead to a previous scramble that's already happened before, and we account for the fact that turns can be repeated, so it is widely accepted that 20 is God's number because of those considerations. I will go into detail, but I don't want to go over the 5-minute limit. If you understood, thanks for watching, and subscribe. If you didn't, well, still subscribe, so I can solve a 4x4 on a pogo stick when I hit 7,000 subscribers.